A widowed millionaire tries to get his routine back on track with his young daughter over lunch by the sea. "Daddy, that beggar looks a lot like Mommy," says the little girl, pointing across the street. When he got closer, he was completely shocked by what he saw. Watch until the end to find out who she really was. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The gentle ocean breeze carried the salt-tinged air across the outdoor patio of the seaside restaurant where Marcus Thompson sat with his 4-year-old daughter Lily. Her golden curls danced in the wind as she carefully arranged her French fries into tiny towers on her plate, a habit she'd picked up in recent months. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across their table, and Marcus found himself lost in thought, watching the way the light played across his daughter's features that reminded him so much of Emily. 18 months had passed since that day, and though he'd developed a routine of sorts, everything still felt mechanical, like going through the motions of living without really being present. The weekly lunch dates with Lily at this restaurant had become their thing, a tradition born from his desperate attempt to create new memories, to establish some sense of normalcy in their altered world. "Daddy, can I have ice cream for dessert?" Lily's voice pulled him from his reverie. Her blue eyes sparkled with hope, and Marcus couldn't help but smile. These were the moments that kept him going, the small victories in maintaining some semblance of regular life. "Of course, sweetie. What flavor would you like?" He watched as she scrunched up her nose in deep concentration, a gesture so reminiscent of Emily that it made his heart ache. "Strawberry. With sprinkles." She clapped her hands excitedly, and Marcus signaled the waiter. As they waited for the dessert to arrive, Lily continued her architectural experiments with the remaining fries, humming a tune she'd learned at preschool. The restaurant had become their safe haven of sorts. The staff knew them by name now, always ensuring they got their favorite table with the perfect view of the ocean. Marcus appreciated their kindness, the way they slipped extra cookies onto Lily's plate, the gentle smiles that held no pity, just warmth. "Look at the seagulls, Daddy." Lily pointed toward the beach where a flock of birds had gathered near the shoreline. Marcus followed her gaze, taking in the peaceful scene. The waves lapped gently at the shore, and couples strolled hand in hand along the beach. It was the kind of day Emily would have loved. The waiter arrived with Lily's ice cream, decorated with an extra helping of rainbow sprinkles that made her eyes grow wide with delight. Marcus watched her dig in, pink ice cream already making its way onto her cheeks. These simple moments of joy were what he lived for now, what kept him putting one foot in front of the other. "Daddy?" Lily's voice suddenly took on a different tone, one that made Marcus look up from his coffee. She was staring intently at something across the street, her spoon frozen halfway to her mouth. "What is it, sweetheart?" "That lady over there." Lily pointed toward the sidewalk across from the restaurant. "She looks just like Mommy." Marcus's heart skipped a beat. He'd learned to steel himself against these moments. Lily often saw her mother in crowds, in shopping malls, in parks. It was part of her processing, the child psychologist had explained. But something in her voice this time made him turn and look. A woman stood at the corner, her attention fixed on the ocean. Her clothes were worn and dirty, her hair unkempt, but there was something in her stance, in the way she held herself, that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. Despite her disheveled appearance, there was an undeniable elegance in her posture, a familiar grace that sent a jolt of recognition through his body. Without thinking, he found himself rising from his chair. "Stay right here, Lily, don't move." His voice sounded strange to his own ears. As if in a dream, he made his way toward the restaurant's entrance, his legs moving of their own accord. The woman remained still, seemingly lost in contemplation. Above the waves, the closer he got, the more his heart raced. It couldn't be possible, he told himself. It was impossible. Yet there was something about her profile, something in the curve of her neck and the way she held her shoulders that was hauntingly familiar. Before he could stop himself, a name escaped his lips, barely more than a whisper. "Rebecca?" The A. Woman turned, startled by the sound of her name. Her face, though weathered and marked by obvious hardship, held traces of refined beauty. Their eyes met, and Marcus watched as recognition dawned in her expression. Not the recognition he'd half expected, half feared, but something different entirely. Marcus. Her voice was hoarse but carried the ghost of refinement. Marcus Thompson. He stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. This woman knew him, knew his name, but not as Emily's husband. There was something else in her eyes, something that spoke of a different connection, a different time. Behind him, through the restaurant's window, Catherine Walsh, Emily's mother, had just arrived for a surprise visit with her granddaughter. She stood motionless, watching the scene unfold with an expression that moved from confusion to recognition to something approaching terror. The woman's eyes darted nervously between Marcus and the ground, her hands fidgeting with the worn edges of her jacket. I was Emily's roommate in college, she said softly, her voice carrying both warmth and hesitation. She used to talk about you all the time, even before you two started dating. Marcus felt the world tilt slightly beneath his feet. Rebecca Miller, the name came flooding back to him now. Emily had mentioned her occasionally during their early relationship, always with a mix of fondness and something else he couldn't quite identify. But she'd disappeared from Emily's life so suddenly, so completely, that she'd become little more than a footnote in their shared history. Rebecca, he repeated, this time with recognition. Emily's friend from Stanford. The words felt strange in his mouth, like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. What happened to you? How did you? He gestured vaguely at her appearance, immediately regretting the action when he saw her shrink slightly into herself. But Rebecca surprised him by straightening her shoulders, a flash of her former self showing through the years of hardship. Life has a way of taking unexpected turns, she said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I spent years caring for my grandfather after he fell ill. By the time he recovered enough for assisted living, I'd lost touch with everyone, lost my career momentum. Then one thing led to another, and well, she gestured to herself, echoing his earlier motion with a touch of self-deprecating humor. Inside the restaurant, Lily pressed her face against the window, watching her father with curious eyes. Catherine, who had finally made her way to their table, placed a protective hand on her granddaughter's shoulder, her expression tense as she observed the interaction outside. Daddy's talking to someone who looks like Mommy, Lily informed her, grandmother matter-of-factly, returning to her melting ice cream. Catherine's grip on the back of Lily's chair tightened imperceptibly. Outside, Marcus found himself studying Rebecca's face more carefully. The resemblance to Emily that had so startled them was there, but different now that he looked closer, more like sisters who shared certain features than twins. It was in the way she held herself, the angle of her chin, the shape of her eyes. But where Emily had always radiated warmth and certainty, Rebecca seemed to carry a shadow of vulnerability beneath her dignified bearing. Would you? Marcus hesitated, surprised by the words forming in his mouth. Would you like to join us? For coffee? Lily and I were just finishing lunch and… He trailed off, uncertain why he was extending the invitation, but knowing somehow that it felt right. Rebecca's eyes widened slightly, a mix of longing and fear crossing her face. I don't think that would be appropriate. I'm not exactly… She glanced down at her worn clothes. Please, Marcus heard himself say, I insist, and I think Emily would have wanted me to help if she knew you were… The mention of Emily's name seemed to strike something in Rebecca. She looked past Marcus toward the restaurant, and he saw the moment she spotted Lily through the window. Something softened in her expression, a gentle light kindling in her eyes. She looks just like her, Rebecca whispered, and for a moment Marcus thought he saw tears threatening to spill. Emily sent me a birth announcement, you know. It was the last time I heard from her. Inside the restaurant, Catherine had pulled out her phone and was scrolling through old photos with trembling fingers, her face growing paler by the moment. She found what she was looking for, a group photo from Emily's college days. There, standing next to her daughter, was a younger version of the woman outside, both of them beaming at the camera with their arms around each other's shoulders. Marcus noticed Rebecca's gaze fixed on the restaurant window, where Lily was now attempting to build a tower with sugar packets under her grandmother's distracted supervision. "That's my daughter, Lily," he said softly. "She's 4 now." "I know," Rebecca replied, then quickly added, I can tell she has Emily's smile." She paused, seeming to gather her courage. "Marcus, there's something you should know about Emily and me, about why we lost touch." But before she could continue, a commotion from inside the restaurant drew their attention. Lily had knocked over her water glass, and Catherine was rushing to help the waiter clean up the spill, her face a mask of forced composure. The moment shattered, and Rebecca took a step back. "I should go," she said quickly, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a worn business card. "But if you want to talk, I'm usually around this area. The shelter down on Pine Street lets me use their address for mail." She pressed the card into his hand, then turned and hurried away before Marcus could respond. Marcus stood there, watching her disappear around the corner, the card feeling impossibly heavy in his hand. When he finally returned to the table, Catherine was wiping Lily's hands with a napkin, her movements mechanical and tense. That evening, after putting Lily to bed, Marcus sat in his home office, Rebecca's worn business card lying on the desk before him. Catherine had left shortly after the incident at the restaurant, citing a headache, but the tension in her shoulders had spoken volumes. He could still feel the weight of her unspoken words hanging in the air. The soft glow of his computer screen illuminated the room as he typed Rebecca's name into the search bar. The results painted a picture of a life that had once held great promise. Stanford University graduate, summa cum laude. Several published articles in prestigious psychology journals, a position at a well-respected research institution. Then, around 6 years ago, everything stopped. He leaned back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. The Rebecca he'd found online bore little resemblance to the woman he'd met today, yet something about her drew him in. Perhaps it was the way she'd looked at Lily, with a mixture of tenderness and profound sadness that seemed to echo his own feelings. His phone buzzed, displaying Catherine's number. He hesitated before answering. "Marcus," her voice was tight with barely controlled emotion. "We need to talk about what happened today." He closed his eyes, preparing himself. "Catherine, No, listen to me," she cut him off. "That woman, Rebecca Miller, Emily specifically asked her to stay away from our family. Did you know that?" Marcus sat up straighter. "What are you talking about?" "It was during your engagement." Catherine's voice trembled slightly. "Emily came home one weekend, absolutely distraught. She wouldn't tell me everything, but she said she'd had to make a difficult decision to protect her future, to protect you and any children you might have." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He glanced at the family photo on his desk. Emily, holding newborn Lily, her smile radiant despite her obvious exhaustion. What had she been protecting them from? Catherine, Rebecca, was her best friend in college. They were roommates for years. What could have possibly... "Sometimes we think we know people, Marcus," Catherine interrupted, her voice softer now. "Emily was an excellent judge of character. If she felt the need to distance herself from Rebecca, she must have had a good reason." After ending the call, Marcus found himself standing in the doorway of Lily's room, watching his daughter sleep. Her stuffed giraffe, a gift from Emily, was clutched tightly in her arms, and her face held that peaceful expression that made his heart ache with love and protection. The next morning, after dropping Lily at preschool, Marcus found himself driving toward Pine Street. The shelter Rebecca had mentioned was a well-maintained building with a small garden out front. A middle-aged woman at the front desk smiled warmly when he inquired about Rebecca. "Oh, Rebecca. She's one of our regulars." "Such a gentle soul," the woman said, her eyes softening. "She helps us with our children's reading program when she's feeling up to it. The kids adore her." Marcus learned that Rebecca had been coming to the shelter for about 8 months. Before that, she'd been staying with her grandfather in a nursing home, helping with his care despite her own struggles. The staff spoke of her with obvious affection, describing her as quiet but kind, always willing to help others despite her circumstances. He left his number with the desk, asking them to have Rebecca call him if she felt comfortable doing so. As he walked back to his car, his phone chimed with a text from Catherine. "Coming by to drop off some of Emily's old photos for Lily. We need to finish our conversation." The photos were spread across his dining room table when Catherine arrived. She pulled out a particular album, flipping to a specific page with determined precision. "Here," she said, pointing to a photo of Emily and Rebecca at what appeared to be a college formal. This was taken about a month before everything changed. Marcus studied the image. The two women were dressed elegantly, their arms around each other's waists, laughing at something off camera. They looked so carefree, so happy. Emily's face glowed with youth and joy, and Rebecca looked at Emily with an expression that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. "I found Emily crying in her old room the next month," Catherine continued, her voice distant. "She'd driven home in the middle of the night. When I asked what was wrong, she just kept saying she'd done what she had to do, that sometimes love meant making impossible choices." Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. An unknown number. His heart jumped as he answered. "Mr. Thompson?" A hesitant voice came through. "This is Rebecca. The shelter said you came by—" "Rebecca?" "Yes." He found himself standing, moving away from Catherine's watchful gaze. "I've been doing some research, trying to understand. Would you be willing to meet? There are things I need to ask you." There was a long pause on the other end. "I suppose I owe you that much," she finally said. "But Marcus, are you sure you want to know? Some truths can't be unknown once they're spoken." He looked back at the dining room table, at Catherine, sitting rigidly in her chair, at the photo of Emily and Rebecca still lying there, their frozen smiles holding secrets he was only beginning to understand. "I need to know," he said firmly. "For Lily's sake, for Emily's memory, and for my own peace of mind." "The coffee shop on Ocean Avenue," Rebecca suggested after another pause. "Tomorrow at 10, it's where Emily and I used to study together." As he ended the call, Catherine stood up, gathering the photos with trembling hands. "Marcus," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "whatever you learn tomorrow, remember that Emily loved you. Everything she did, every choice she made was out of love." He watched his mother-in-law leave, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on his shoulders. In Lily's room, he could hear his daughter's mobile playing its gentle lullaby, the same one Emily had chosen before she was born. Tomorrow he would finally understand why his wife had pushed away someone who had once been so important to her. Tomorrow the past would begin to unravel. The Ocean Avenue coffee shop looked exactly as it had in the old college photos Marcus had found online. Warm wooden tables, mismatched vintage chairs, and local artwork covering the exposed brick walls created an atmosphere that seemed frozen in time. He arrived early, choosing a quiet corner table that offered a view of both the entrance and the street outside. The morning crowd had thinned, leaving only a few students with laptops and a couple of elderly regulars reading newspapers. The scent of freshly ground coffee and baked goods filled the air, and Marcus found himself wondering how many hours Emily had spent here, sharing secrets and dreams with the woman he was about to meet. Rebecca arrived precisely at 10, wearing clean but clearly second-hand clothes. Her hair was neatly combed, and she'd made an obvious effort to present herself as professionally as possible. She carried herself with the same grace he'd noticed before, though her hands trembled slightly as she slid into the chair across from him. "I ordered you a cappuccino," Marcus said, gesturing to the steaming cup before her. "Emily once mentioned it was your favorite." A shadow of a smile crossed Rebecca's face. "She remembered everything about everyone," she said softly. "Every birthday, every preference, every small detail that made someone feel special." The barista brought over a plate of scones, another memory from Emily's stories about her college days, and they sat in silence for a moment, neither quite ready to begin the conversation that would change everything. "Why did you agree to meet me?" Marcus finally asked, studying Rebecca's face carefully. She wrapped her hands around the warm cup, as if drawing strength from its heat. Because Emily would have wanted you to know the truth eventually. She always said you had the kindest heart of anyone she'd ever met. That you'd understand when the time was right. Understand what, Rebecca? What was so terrible that she had to cut you out of her life completely? Rebecca's eyes met his, and in them, he saw a depth of pain that matched his own. It wasn't terrible, Marcus, it was love. The wrong kind of love at the wrong time between the wrong people. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Marcus felt his heart rate quicken as pieces of a puzzle he hadn't known existed began to fall into place. You were in love with her, he said quietly. Not a question, but a revelation. Rebecca nodded slowly, tears gathering in her eyes. And she loved me too in her way, but Emily, she wanted a different life, a normal life, she said. A family, children, stability. Everything her own childhood lacked after her father left. Marcus remembered the early days of his relationship with Emily, how she'd sometimes seemed distant, struggling with something she couldn't or wouldn't express, how she'd throw herself into planning their future with an almost desperate enthusiasm. The night everything changed, Rebecca continued, her voice barely above a whisper. She came to our apartment in tears, said she'd been fighting her feelings for months, trying to convince herself she could live two lives, but she couldn't. She showed me the ring you'd given her, and I knew... She paused, taking a shaky breath. I knew that was the end. She asked me to disappear, to give her a chance at the life she thought she needed. Said it would be easier if she never had to explain to anyone, never had to face the questions or the judgment. I loved her enough to give her that. Marcus sat back, memories flooding his mind. Emily's occasional melancholy, the way she'd sometimes wake up crying from dreams she refused to discuss, her insistence that they move away from Stanford after graduation despite job offers in the area. But why stay away after she was gone? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. Why live like this when you could have had a different life? Rebecca's laugh was soft and bitter. I tried to have a different life. I threw myself into my career, dated other people, tried to forget. But then my grandfather got sick and taking care of him gave me purpose. When he improved enough for professional care, I was already sliding into depression. The jobs fell. Through, the relationships ended, and eventually, well, you see what I became. She reached into her worn bag and pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age. Emily wrote me one last letter, about a month before your wedding. I've carried it with me ever since, even when I had nothing else left. Marcus stared at the envelope, Emily's familiar handwriting stark against the aged paper. His fingers trembled as he took it. She wrote that if anything ever happened to her, I should find my way back to you, Rebecca said, standing up suddenly. But not like this. Not as someone who needs saving. I should go. Rebecca, wait, Marcus called out. But she was already moving toward the door, wiping tears from her face. Through the coffee shop window, he watched her walk away, her figure growing smaller against the morning crowd. The letter felt heavy in his hands, weighted with secrets and regrets and possibilities that had never been realized. Back home, he sat in Emily's old reading nook, the letter still unopened on his lap. Through the window, he could see Lily playing in the backyard with her babysitter, her laughter carrying faintly through the glass. In his mind, he heard Emily's voice from their last conversation, words that had seemed odd at the time but now carried new meaning. Promise me you'll keep your heart open, Marcus. Love isn't always what we expect it to be. The letter remained unopened on Marcus's desk for 3 days. Every morning, he would look at it while drinking his coffee, Emily's handwriting calling to him like a voice from the past. But something held him back, perhaps the fear that whatever truths lay within those pages would forever change the memory of his marriage. On the 4th morning, as he dropped Lily off at preschool, she asked the question that would alter their trajectory once again. Daddy, why was the lady who looks like Mommy crying at the coffee shop? Marcus froze, his hand still on the classroom door. You saw her? Lily nodded, adjusting her backpack straps. When Miss Sarah took us for our walking field trip, she was sitting, alone and looked sad. Can we help her be happy? The innocent question struck Marcus with unexpected force. He knelt down to Lily's level, studying his daughter's earnest face. In her eyes he saw Emily's compassion, that same instinctive desire to help others that had made him fall in love with her mother. "Would you like that?" he asked carefully. "To help her?" "Uh-huh." Lily nodded enthusiastically. "She can come to our house for dinner. We can make spaghetti, and she can see my drawings." That evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Marcus finally opened the letter. His hands trembled as he unfolded the delicate paper, revealing Emily's familiar, flowing script. "Dearest Rebecca, by the time you read this, I'll be married to Marcus. I want you to know that what I'm doing isn't a rejection of our love, but an embrace of who I need to become. The world we dreamed of building together was beautiful, but it wasn't the one I was meant to live in. Marcus represents everything, stable and true, that I never had growing up. With him, I can build the family I always yearned for, give my children the security I never knew. But loving him doesn't erase what we shared. It just gives it a different shape, a different meaning. I'm asking you to stay away not because I don't love you, but because I love you too much. Being near you makes me question everything, and I can't afford to question anymore. I need to be certain, to be steady, to be the kind of mother my children will need. But if anything ever happens to me, if fate takes an unexpected turn, find your way back to them. Marcus has the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. He'll understand when the time is right. And any child of mine will need someone who knows how to love as fiercely and completely as you do. Forever yours, in a different life, Emily." Marcus sat back in his chair, tears streaming down his face. The words seemed to pulse with Emily's presence, her voice echoing in his mind. After several minutes, he reached for his phone and dialed the shelter's number. The next morning, he stood outside the shelter, his heart pounding as he waited. Rebecca emerged, surprise evident on her face when she saw him. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" He took a deep breath. "I have a proposition for you. It might sound crazy, but please hear me out." Rebecca's expression grew wary, but she nodded. "Lily needs a babysitter," he began. "Her current sitter is moving away next month, and I think you might be perfect for the job. We have a guest room that's just sitting empty, and you clearly have a way with children, according to the shelter staff." Rebecca's eyes widened. "Marcus, you can't be serious after everything I told you." "I read Emily's letter," he interrupted softly, "and I think she knew exactly what she was doing when she wrote it. She wanted us to find each other when the time was right. But your mother-in-law, Catherine, will have to understand, this isn't about replacing Emily. It's about honoring her wishes and doing what's best for Lily." He paused, watching emotions play across Rebecca's face. "Plus, Lily saw you at the coffee shop. She wants to help you be happy." Rebecca let out a shaky laugh that was half sob. "She's just like her mother, isn't she?" "In all the best ways," Marcus agreed. "Look, I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this might be a terrible idea. But I also know that Emily trusted you enough to write that letter, and I trust her judgment even now." He could see the conflict in Rebecca's eyes, the desire warring with fear and uncertainty. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "Being in her house, surrounded by her things—" "It won't be easy," Marcus acknowledged. "But maybe that's the point. Maybe healing isn't supposed to be easy. Maybe it's about facing the hard things together." A group of children ran past them, laughing as they headed to the shelter's reading program. Rebecca watched them with longing in her eyes. "You don't have to answer right now," Marcus said gently, "but at least come have dinner with us tonight. Lily's requesting spaghetti and she wants to show you her artwork." Rebecca turned back to him, tears glistening in her eyes. "Emily always said you had a way of making impossible things seem possible. Is that a yes?" She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders in a gesture that reminded him so much of Emily, it made his heart ache. "It's I'll come to dinner. The rest, we'll have to see." As they walked toward his car, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, somewhere, Emily was smiling at them, knowing that her final gift to them all was the chance to heal together. The shelter director watched them from the window, a knowing smile on her face as she held a photograph she'd found in Rebecca's few possessions, a faded picture of 3 young people at a carnival. Emily, Rebecca, and Marcus, all laughing, their whole lives still ahead of them. The aroma of garlic and tomato sauce filled the kitchen as Marcus stirred the pasta, watching Lily arrange her stuffed animals at the dinner table. She had insisted on setting a special place for each of her favorite toys, explaining that they needed to help make their guest feel welcome. "Do you think she likes unicorns, Daddy?" Lily asked, carefully positioning her prized purple unicorn next to what would be Rebecca's plate. "I'm sure she'll love them," Marcus assured her, trying to calm his own nerves. The simple dinner suddenly felt weighted with significance, like a scene from a play where every gesture carried hidden meaning. The doorbell rang at exactly 6, and Lily raced to answer it, with Marcus close behind. Rebecca stood on the porch, holding a small potted plant and wearing clothes that the shelter had helped her find. Simple but clean, her hair pulled back neatly. "I brought this," she said, holding out the plant. "It's an African violet. Emily always loved them." Marcus took the plant, noting how Rebecca's hands trembled slightly. Before anyone could say anything else, Lily grabbed Rebecca's hand and pulled her toward the dining room. "Come see my drawings. I made them special for you." The wall next to the dining table had been transformed into an impromptu art gallery with Lily's crayon masterpieces taped at child height. Rebecca knelt down, allowing Lily to guide her through each piece with the solemnity of a museum curator. "This is our house," Lily explained, pointing to a colorful rectangle with a triangle roof. "And this is Daddy, and me, and all my stuffed animals, and look," she pointed to a figure drawn in yellow crayon. "This is Mommy as a star in the sky watching over us." Rebecca's breath caught, and Marcus saw her blink back tears, but her voice was steady as she praised each drawing, asking questions that made Lily beam with pride. During dinner, Marcus watched in amazement as Lily chatted away, telling Rebecca about her preschool adventures and favorite books. Rebecca listened intently, responding with genuine interest and gentle humor that drew even more stories from the little girl. "You're good with her," Marcus observed, during a rare quiet moment when Lily was concentrated on twirling her spaghetti. Rebecca smiled softly. "I used to want to be a child psychologist before everything. Children have such pure hearts. They see the world so clearly, without all the complications we adults create. Is that why you help with the reading program at the shelter?" She nodded. "It reminds me of who I used to be, who I still am, underneath everything else." She paused, watching Lily successfully capture a particularly challenging strand of spaghetti. "Emily used to say that working with children was my superpower. She said I had a way of making them feel safe and understood." "Daddy," Lily interrupted, marinara sauce decorating her chin, "can Rebecca read me my bedtime story tonight?" Marcus glanced at Rebecca, seeing both desire and uncertainty in her eyes. "If Rebecca would like to, sweetie." "I'd love to," Rebecca said softly, then added with a small laugh, "as long as you don't mind marinara sauce on your books." Later, as Rebecca sat in the reading chair in Lily's room, the little girl curled trustingly against her side. Marcus stood in the doorway watching them. Rebecca's voice rose and fell with the rhythm of the story, giving each character a distinct personality that had Lily giggling with delight. The scene stirred something in his heart, not pain, as he'd feared, but a gentle warmth. He could almost hear Emily's voice from her letter. "Any child of mine will need someone who knows how to love as fiercely and completely as you do." After Lily had fallen asleep, they stood in the hallway, the evening's emotions hanging heavy between them. "The guest room is yours," Marcus said quietly. "Whenever you're ready, no pressure, no expectations, just a place to start over." Rebecca looked down the hallway toward the room, then back at him. "Are you sure about this, Marcus?" "Really sure, because once we start down this path—" "I'm sure," he interrupted gently. Emily trusted both of us to find our way here, and watching you with Lily tonight, I understand why." She nodded slowly, tears gleaming in her eyes. "I'll need a few days to say goodbye to people at the shelter, to prepare myself. Take all the time you need. We'll be here." As Marcus walked Rebecca to her cab that evening, the spring air was soft with promise. Above them, stars peppered the clear sky, and he thought of Lily's drawing, Emily as a star watching over them all. Somehow, in ways he couldn't yet fully understand, their broken pieces were beginning to find new ways to fit together. Catherine's car was parked across the street. Though she made no move to get out, Marcus saw her watching them, her expression unreadable in the darkness. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring difficult conversations and hard truths. But tonight, for the first time in 18 months, his house felt less like a memorial and more like a home. The confrontation with Catherine came sooner than Marcus had expected. She appeared at his door early the next morning, her normally perfectly styled hair slightly disheveled, her eyes bearing the shadows of a sleepless night. "Have you completely lost your mind?" she demanded, brushing past him into the foyer. "Inviting a homeless woman to live in your house? To take care of my granddaughter?" Marcus closed the door quietly, conscious of Lily still sleeping upstairs. "Catherine, please lower your voice." "Don't you dare tell me to lower my voice," she hissed, though she did decrease her volume. "Emily specifically asked that woman to stay away from her family. I have the right to protect my granddaughter from..." "From what exactly?" Marcus interrupted, his own voice tight with controlled emotion. "From someone Emily trusted enough to write a letter to, asking her to look after us if anything ever happened." Catherine's face went pale. "What letter?" Marcus led her to his study, retrieving Emily's letter from his desk drawer. He watched as Catherine sank into a chair, her hands trembling as she read her daughter's last words to Rebecca. "This can't be real," she whispered, but the denial in her voice was weak. "Emily wouldn't." "She did," Marcus said gently, "because she knew something you and I are only beginning to understand, that love doesn't always fit into the neat boxes we try to put it in." Catherine looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "She never told me, all those years she never..." "She was trying to be the daughter she thought you needed," Marcus said, kneeling beside her chair. "Just like she tried to be the wife and mother she thought we needed, but she was wise enough to leave us a path to healing, even if it's not the one we expected." A small voice from the doorway made them both turn. "Grandma, why are you crying?" Lily stood there in her butterfly pajamas, clutching her purple unicorn. Catherine quickly wiped her eyes, opening her arms. Lily rushed into them, wrapping her small arms around her grandmother's neck. "I'm just missing your mommy, sweetheart," Catherine said softly. "Me too," Lily said. Then, with the simple wisdom of children, she added, "But Rebecca knows lots of stories about mommy from college. She told me one last night about how mommy once helped save a baby bird that fell from its nest." Catherine's arms tightened around her granddaughter. "She did?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Uh-huh. And Rebecca said mommy made a special little bed for it in a shoebox and fed it with a tiny dropper until it was strong enough to fly away. Just like in my favorite book." Marcus watched as something shifted in Catherine's expression. She looked down at the letter in her hand, then back at her granddaughter. Would you tell me more stories that Rebecca shared about your mommy?" Over breakfast, Lily regaled her grandmother with the stories Rebecca had told during dinner and story time. With each tale, Marcus could see Catherine's rigid posture softening slightly, her defensive anger giving way to a more complex emotion. When Lily left to get dressed for preschool, Catherine remained at the table, staring into her coffee cup. "I always wondered why Emily stopped talking about her college years," she said finally. "She used to tell me everything, and then suddenly, it was like those years disappeared." "She was trying to protect everyone," Marcus said. "Including you, including Rebecca, including herself. And now? Now we honor her wisdom by trusting her judgment. She knew what she was doing when she wrote that letter, Catherine. She knew Rebecca would need us as much as we would need her." Catherine stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. "I can't promise to be comfortable with this, Marcus, but—" She paused, picking up Emily's letter. "May I keep this? Just for a few days. I need to understand my daughter better." Marcus nodded. "Of course. And Catherine. Rebecca moves in next week. It would mean a lot to Lily and to Emily's memory if you could find it in your heart to give her a chance." Later that afternoon, as Marcus helped Rebecca move her few belongings from the shelter to his house, his phone chimed with a text from Catherine. "I found Emily's college journals in the attic. When you're ready, there are things you both should know." Rebecca was arranging her modest collection of books on the guest room shelf when Marcus told her about Catherine's message. She froze, a worn copy of The Velveteen Rabbit in her hands. "Emily kept journals?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Apparently so. Catherine says there are things we should know." Rebecca placed the book carefully on the shelf, her fingers lingering on its spine. "There were so many things we never said out loud back then, so many truths we thought we had to hide." She turned to face Marcus, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Are you sure you want to know them all?" He thought about the photograph the shelter director had shown him as they left, the three of them at the carnival, young and laughing and unaware of the complexities that lay ahead. "I think," he said slowly, "that Emily left us breadcrumbs to follow, and maybe the only way forward is to follow them together." A crash of thunder made them both jump, and seconds later they heard Lily's voice from downstairs. "Daddy! Rebecca, can we make a pillow fort? The storm is scary." They shared a look, and for the first time since Rebecca had moved in, they both smiled genuinely. "Pillow fort engineering is one of my specialties," Rebecca said, her voice lighter. They descended the stairs together. Another rumble of thunder shook the house, but inside, surrounded by blankets and pillows and Lily's delighted giggles, they were building something new, a shelter from all their storms, both past and present. The journals arrived on a Sunday afternoon, delivered by Catherine herself. She placed the box on Marcus's kitchen counter, with the careful reverence usually reserved for sacred objects. 3 leather-bound books, their pages yellowed and dog-eared, held the unspoken stories of Emily's college years. "I haven't read them," Catherine said, her voice catching slightly. "I couldn't. They were her private thoughts, and I needed to respect that, even now." Rebecca, who had been helping Lily with a puzzle in the living room, stood frozen in the doorway. The sight of the journals seemed to physically affect her, as if their mere presence had altered the air in the room. "Should we?" Marcus began, but Catherine interrupted him. "I'll take Lily to the park," she said, surprising both of them. "You two need to do this together. Emily would have wanted that." As Catherine and Lily's voices faded down the driveway, Marcus and Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, the journals between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. "You should read them first," Rebecca said softly. "She was your wife." Marcus shook his head. "She was your best friend first, and these journals, they're from your time together. You should start." With trembling hands, Rebecca opened the first journal. Emily's familiar handwriting flowed across the pages, full of youth and hope and uncertainty. September 15th, 2006. Rebecca moved in today. She has this way of making a space feel like home instantly. She hung fairy lights around our dorm room, windows, and arranged her books by color instead of author. When I asked why, she said, "Because beauty matters more than order sometimes. I think I'm going to like living with her." Rebecca's voice broke as she read the words aloud. Marcus reached across the table and squeezed her hand, encouraging her to continue. December 3rd, 2006. I can't stop thinking about the way Rebecca laughs. It's like music, but better somehow. Today in the library, she was telling me about her dreams of working with troubled children, and her whole face lit up. I've never met anyone who cares so deeply about healing others. Sometimes when she talks, I forget to breathe. They took turns reading entries, watching their shared past unfold through Emily's eyes. The joy of friendship deepening into something more complex. the fear of acknowledging feelings that didn't fit into their carefully planned futures. The moment everything changed. March 12th, 2007. Met a guy in my economics class today. Marcus. Thompson. He has kind eyes and talks about wanting a big family someday. When he smiles, I can see the future I'm supposed to want. The one my mom always dreamed of for me after Dad left. A stable home, children, Sunday dinners with grandparents, everything Rebecca and I could never have in this world. But when I got back to our room and saw her asleep on her bed, surrounded by psychology textbooks, my heart felt like it was being torn in two. How can I want two such different futures at the same time? Marcus had to stop reading, his vision blurring. Rebecca's hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles white with tension. April 30th, 2007, Marcus asked me out today. I said yes. When I told Rebecca, she smiled and said she was happy for me. But I saw something break in her eyes, and I'll never forgive myself for being the one who put that look there. They read through the years of college, through Emily's growing relationship with Marcus, running parallel to her unspoken love for Rebecca, through late-night conversations and shared secrets, through the pain of choosing between two kinds of love. The final entry, dated just before graduation, made them both catch their breath. I love them both so completely in such different ways. Marcus is my future, my chance at building the family I've always dreamed of. But Rebecca is the poem I'll never be brave enough to write, the song I'll never be strong enough to sing. Years from now, when I'm living the life I've chosen, I'll still hear her laugh in my dreams. And maybe, if I'm lucky, she'll find her way back to us somehow, because love this pure doesn't really end. It just changes shape, waiting for the right moment to bloom again. As Rebecca closed the final journal, silence filled the kitchen. Outside, they could hear Lily's laughter as she returned from the park with Catherine, the sound floating through the windows like a reminder of all that had led them to this moment. She never stopped loving either of us, Marcus said finally, his voice rough with emotion. Rebecca nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. She found a way to love us both, even when she thought she had to choose. They sat there as the afternoon light faded, the journals between them now feeling less like a barrier and more like a bridge. In the living room, they could hear Lily showing Catherine her latest art project, their voices mixing with the familiar sounds of home. "What do we do now?" Rebecca asked softly. Marcus looked at the journals, then at the woman his wife had loved enough to let go, enough to guide back to them when the time was right. "We honor her love," he said simply. "All of it." The weeks following the discovery of Emily's journals brought subtle changes to the household. Rebecca's presence grew more assured, her movements through the house less hesitant. She and Lily developed their own little rituals: Wednesday afternoon baking sessions, Saturday morning story hours in the garden, and impromptu dance parties in the kitchen while preparing dinner. But it was the evening traditions that touched Marcus the most deeply. Each night, Rebecca would help Lily create a star message for Emily, a small drawing or note that they would tape to the bedroom window, facing the night sky. The practice had begun spontaneously one evening when Lily had been particularly missing her mother. "If Mommy's a star now," Lily had reasoned, "she can read our messages from up there." The tradition stuck, and soon the window became a kaleidoscope of colorful papers, each holding pieces of Lily's heart, written in crayon and glitter. One evening, as Marcus passed by Lily's room, he overheard a conversation that made him pause. In the hallway, "Rebecca," Lily's voice was thoughtful. "Did you love my mommy?" Marcus held his breath, waiting for Rebecca's response. Through the partially open door, he could see them sitting together in the window seat, working on that evening's star message. "Yes, sweetheart," Rebecca answered after a moment. "I loved her very much. She was my best friend in college. Like how Jenny is my best friend at school." Rebecca's laugh was soft and slightly watery. "Something like that. Your mommy had a way of making everyone around her feel special and loved." "Daddy says I have her smile," Lily said proudly. You do. And her kind heart too. Rebecca helped Lily fold a corner of her paper into a star shape. You know what else you have of hers? Her ability to see the good in everyone. That's a very special gift. Is that why you came to live with us? Because you saw the good in us. Marcus watched as Rebecca gathered Lily into a gentle hug. I came because your mummy was wise enough to know that sometimes the best families are the ones we build together, piece by piece. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus found Rebecca in the kitchen making tea. The evening light cast long shadows across the counter, and for a moment he was struck by how natural she looked there, as if she'd always belonged in this space. Thank you, he said quietly, for what you said to Lily tonight. Rebecca turned, not entirely surprised that he had overheard. I've been thinking about the journals, she said, offering him a cup of tea. About how Emily managed to love so completely, so unselfishly. She chose you, chose this life, but she never stopped believing in the power of different kinds of love. Marcus leaned against the counter, cradling his cup. I've been thinking about that too, about how we're taught that love has to fit into certain categories, certain boxes. But Emily, she saw beyond that. She always did. Rebecca smiled, softly. Do you remember that carnival photo? The one from the shelter? The three of us laughing at something I can't even remember now. Emily remembered, Rebecca said, pulling something from her pocket, a folded piece of paper that had clearly been read many times. I found this tucked into one of her journals. It's a note she wrote about that day. Marcus took the paper carefully, unfolding it to reveal Emily's handwriting. Today at the carnival, I watched the two people I love most in the world share a cotton candy and laugh at terrible carnival jokes. They don't know it yet, but they're both going to be such important parts of my story. Marcus with his dreams of family and his gentle strength. Rebecca with her wild heart and her ability to heal broken things. Sometimes I think God gave me two great loves, not to force a choice, but to show me that love multiplies rather than divides. The words blurred as Marcus's eyes filled with tears. She knew, he whispered. Even then, she knew this moment would come. Rebecca placed her hand over his where it rested on the counter. She knew we'd find our way here, in our own time, that we'd learn to build something new out of all our broken pieces. A soft sound from the doorway made them both look up. Catherine stood there, holding a photo album. I found more pictures, she said quietly. From their college years. I thought maybe we could look at them together, help Lily know all the sides of her mother. The tension that had lingered between Catherine and Rebecca seemed to soften slightly as they shared a look of understanding. Emily's mother moved into the kitchen, placing the album on the counter, between them. She looked so happy here, Catherine said, opening to a page showing Emily and Rebecca in their dorm room, surrounded by books and fairy lights. I never understood why she stopped telling me about these years. But now you know she was trying to protect everyone's hearts, Rebecca finished gently. Catherine nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek, including her own. She turned to another page, showing Emily, Marcus, and Rebecca at a campus coffee shop. Tell me about this day. Tell me about my daughter when she was young and full of dreams. As they sat around the kitchen table, sharing stories and memories, the night grew deep around them. Above, Lily slept peacefully, her latest star message twinkling in her window. Dear Mommy, I think you sent us an angel to help us remember you better. Love, Lily. Outside, a shooting star streaked across the sky, as if in answer to a little girl's faith and a love story that refused to be bound by conventional limits. The transformation of their lives continued in small but significant ways. Rebecca, with Catherine's unexpected support, began taking online courses to renew her psychology credentials. The guest room gradually evolved into her space, decorated with fairy lights reminiscent of her college days, and filled with books on child development and family therapy. One particular Wednesday afternoon, as Rebecca helped Lily with her preschool art project, an unexpected visitor arrived at their door. Marcus opened it to find an elderly man standing there, his eyes bright with recognition. I'm looking for Rebecca Miller, he said, his voice wavering slightly. The shelter told me I might find her here. Marcus recognized him from Rebecca's stories, her grandfather, the man she'd spent years caring for. "Please come in, Rebecca's just in the living room with my daughter." The reunion between Rebecca and her grandfather was both heartbreaking and beautiful. He had recovered enough to leave the nursing home and had spent months trying to locate her. When he learned she was no longer at the shelter, he'd feared the worst until a kind staff member told him about her new situation. "My Becky," he said, holding her face in his trembling hands. "Look at you. You're glowing again, just like when you were young." Lily, naturally curious, approached the elderly man with her characteristic openness. "Are you Rebecca's daddy's daddy?" The old man chuckled, kneeling down with some effort to meet Lily's eyes. "That's right, little one. And who might you be?" "I'm Lily. Rebecca helps take care of me because my mommy became a star." She said this, matter-of-factly, with the simple acceptance of children. "Do you want to see my art project? Rebecca was helping me make it." As Lily led Rebecca's grandfather to her craft table, showing him her collection of painted seashells, Marcus watched. Rebecca's face. The joy there was tinged with something deeper, a sense of worlds colliding and healing all at once. Later that evening, after Lily had convinced Grandpa Joe to stay for dinner and tell her stories about when Rebecca was little, Marcus found Rebecca in the garden, sitting on the bench Emily had loved so much. "He wants me to come live with him," she said without preamble. "He's gotten an apartment nearby, says he needs help getting around sometimes, but mostly he just wants his family back." Marcus felt his heart constrict. Are you going to go?" Rebecca turned to him, her eyes reflecting the setting sun. "That's the thing, Marcus. I think I've found my family here too, with you and Lily, even with Catherine. Emily knew what she was doing when she wrote that letter. She knew we'd all need each other." "Then stay," Marcus said simply. "Your grandfather can visit whenever he wants. He can be part of this too. This unconventional family we're building." "Emily never did like conventional," Marcus smiled. "Remember what she wrote in her journal? About love multiplying rather than dividing." Rebecca nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. "I never thought I'd have this again. A home, a family, people who look at me and see more than my mistakes." From inside the house, they could hear Lily's delighted laughter mixing with her new grandfather's deeper chuckle. The sound floated through the evening air like music. "You know what this means, don't you?" Marcus said, his voice gentle. "You're not just the babysitter anymore, you're family. Whatever shape that takes, whatever way it grows, you're part of us now." Rebecca's response was interrupted by Lily bursting through the back door, clutching a handful of papers. "Look what Grandpa Joe brought, pictures of Rebecca when she was little like me." They gathered around as Lily spread the photos on the garden bench. There was Rebecca at 5, holding a stuffed giraffe remarkably similar to Lily's favorite toy. Rebecca at her high school graduation, beaming beside her grandfather. Rebecca and Emily in their college days, their whole lives ahead of them. "You were pretty like a princess," Lily declared, studying a photo of teenage Rebecca. "You still are." Catherine, who had arrived for her usual evening visit, joined them in the garden. She picked up one of the college photos, showing Emily and Rebecca at a campus festival. "I remember when she sent me this," she said softly. "She wrote on the back, 'Mom, I've found my soul sister.'" Rebecca's grandfather watched them all with wise, knowing eyes. "Sometimes," he said, his voice carrying the weight of years, "life takes away everything we think we need, only to lead us back to where we truly belong." As the evening deepened around them, they remained in the garden sharing stories and memories, building bridges between past and present. Above them, the first stars began to appear, and Lily pointed excitedly. "Look, Mommy's watching us all. Be happy together." Marcus wrapped an arm around his daughter as Rebecca leaned her head against his shoulder. Catherine and Grandpa Joe sat close by, their presence completing the circle of their unconventional family. In that moment, Marcus could almost feel Emily's approval radiating down from the stars, blessing this new chapter in all their lives. As autumn painted the neighborhood in shades of gold and amber, Catherine arrived one morning with a metal lockbox she'd discovered while cleaning out her attic. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed it on Marcus's kitchen counter. "I found this in Emily's old things," she explained, her voice tight with emotion. "I never knew she kept it, but I think you both need to see what's inside." Rebecca, who had been helping Lily pack her backpack for school, froze at the sight of the box. "I remember that," she whispered. "Emily used to keep it under her bed in our dorm room." Marcus examined the box carefully. It was old but well maintained, its surface showing signs of frequent handling. A small key hung from a ribbon around the handle. "Should we wait until after I drop Lily at school?" he asked, glancing at his daughter, who was happily occupied with her breakfast. Catherine nodded. "I'll take her today," she offered, surprising them both. I think you two need to do this together, like the journals." After Catherine and Lily left, Marcus and Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, the mysterious box between them. With slightly shaking hands, Marcus turned the key in the lock. The lid opened with a soft click. Inside, they found a collection of items that told a story all their own. Concert tickets, dried flowers, photographs, and dozens of sealed envelopes, all addressed but never sent. Some were to Marcus, some to Rebecca, and some to Catherine. "She never mailed these," Rebecca said softly, running her fingers over an envelope with her name written in Emily's elegant handwriting. I think we should read them," Marcus suggested. "All of them, together." They spent the next hour reading through Emily's unsent letters, each one revealing layers of truth she'd kept hidden. The letters to Marcus spoke of her growing illness, her fears about leaving him and Lily, her hope that he would find happiness again. The ones to Catherine expressed regret for not being more open about her feelings, for letting fear of disappointment shape their relationship. But it was the letters to Rebecca that held the most surprising revelations. In them, Emily wrote about her medical diagnosis, about knowing her time was limited, about her careful plan to bring Rebecca back into their lives when the time was right. "My dearest Rebecca," one letter read, dated just weeks before the accident. "I've been seeing specialists for months now. The headaches are getting worse and the treatments aren't working. They're giving me a year, maybe less. I've been thinking about you, about all of us, about the strange ways love works in our lives. I've arranged everything carefully. The accident, that's coming. It won't be what everyone thinks. I can't bear to let them watch me fade away, to let Lily's last memories of me be in a hospital bed. But I need you to know the truth because you're the only one who will understand why I'm choosing this path. I've left clues, breadcrumbs for Marcus to follow. He'll find you when the time is right. And when he does, please, please be there. For them. Love them the way I know you can. The way you've always loved, completely, unconditionally, with your whole heart. You were never just my best friend, Rebecca. You were the other half of my heart. The path not taken but never forgotten. And now I'm giving you both the greatest gift I can. The chance to heal each other. To build something new from the pieces I'll leave behind." Marcus had to stop reading, his vision blurred with tears. "She knew," he whispered. "All this time she knew exactly what was happening." Rebecca's hands were shaking as she picked up another letter, this one addressed to both of them together. "My loves, if you're reading this, then everything has happened. As I planned. Marcus, you found Rebecca, or she's found you. The two people I loved most in this world are together, taking care of our precious Lily. I know you're probably angry with me for keeping this secret, for making choices that affected all of us without your knowledge. But I needed to protect you from the pain of watching me slip away slowly. I needed to give Lily a chance to remember me as I was, not as I would have become. And I needed to give you both a gift, the gift of finding each other again, of building something beautiful from loss, because love doesn't end with goodbye. It transforms, evolves, finds new ways to bloom. In the bottom of this box, you'll find my medical records, my discussions with the doctors, everything you need to understand what really happened. But more importantly, you'll find the truth of my heart, that I loved you both differently but completely, and that my greatest wish was for you to find happiness together. Take care of each other. Take care of our Lily, and know that wherever I am, I'm smiling down on the family you're becoming." Rebecca pulled out a thick manila envelope from the bottom of the box. Inside were medical reports, brain scans, and consultation notes, all documenting Emily's battle with an aggressive brain tumor. "The accident," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "It wasn't. She chose her own ending," Rebecca finished softly, "to protect all of us." They sat in silence, letting the weight of this final truth settle around them. Outside, autumn leaves danced past the window, and somewhere in the distance, a wind chime played a gentle melody, the one Emily had hung in their garden years ago. "What do we do with this knowledge?" Rebecca finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "We honor her choice," he said. "We build the family she dreamed of for us, and we make sure Lily grows up knowing her mother loved her enough to protect her from pain, even at the very end." The morning light streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over Emily's letters, her final gift to them all. The truth that would finally set them free to love without guilt, to build without fear, to live the life she had carefully orchestrated for them from beyond the stars. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Marcus, Rebecca, and Catherine sat in the living room, surrounded by Emily's letters and the weight of her final truth. Catherine held the medical reports in trembling hands, her face marked by tears and understanding. "She was protecting me too," Catherine whispered. "All those times I called, wondering why she seemed distant. She was trying to spare me from watching her suffer." Rebecca moved to sit beside Catherine on the couch, hesitantly placing a hand on her shoulder. To their surprise, Catherine covered Rebecca's hand with her own. "I owe you an apology," Catherine said, turning to face Rebecca. "I was so focused on protecting Emily's memory that I couldn't see what she was trying to tell us all along. She chose all of this with such care and love." "She was always the wisest of us," Rebecca replied softly. "Even in college, she could see the bigger picture when the rest of us were lost in the details." Marcus watched the two women, remembering Emily's words from one of her letters. "Sometimes the hardest part of love is trusting others to understand it." "We need to tell Lily something," he said finally. "Not everything, not yet, but she deserves to know her. Mother made choices out of love." Catherine nodded slowly. "She's been asking questions about the accident. Maybe it's time to tell her that her mother was sick, but chose to leave us with happy memories instead of sad ones." The next morning, they gathered in the garden, Marcus, Rebecca, Catherine, and Lily, surrounded by Emily's favorite flowers and the gentle autumn breeze. Lily sat on Marcus's lap, her favorite stuffed giraffe clutched tight against her chest. "Sweetheart," Marcus began, his voice gentle, "we want to tell you something about Mommy, something important." Lily looked up at him with Emily's eyes, wise beyond her years. "Is it about why she became a star?" Rebecca and Catherine exchanged glances, both wiping away tears. "Yes, baby," Marcus continued. "You see, Mommy knew she was going to become a star. She was sick, but she didn't want us to be sad. She wanted us to remember her laughing and happy and full of love." "Like in the pictures?" Lily asked, pointing to the photo album they'd been looking through recently. "Exactly like in the pictures," Rebecca added, softly. "Your Mommy was so brave and so smart. She made sure we would all be okay, that we would have each other to help us remember her." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this new information with the remarkable resilience of children. Then she looked up at Rebecca, her face serious. "Is that why you came to live with us, because Mommy knew we needed you?" Rebecca felt her heart swell with love for this child, who carried so much of Emily in her. "Yes, sweetheart. Your Mommy knew that sometimes the best way to keep loving someone is to help the people they loved most in the world." Catherine reached out and took Lily's small hand in hers. "And you know what else, darling? Your Mommy made sure we would all become a family together. Me and your daddy and Rebecca, and even Rebecca's grandfather. She knew love grows bigger when we share it." Lily seemed to consider this, then smiled. Emily's smile, bright and full of hope. "Like my garden. The more flowers we plant, the prettier it gets." Marcus hugged his daughter close, amazed by her simple wisdom. "Exactly like that, sweetheart." As if on cue, a butterfly landed on one of Emily's roses, its wings catching the morning light. Lily clapped in delight, and for a moment, they could all feel Emily's presence in the garden with them. "Can we make a special star message tonight?" Lily asked. "To tell Mommy we understand about her being sick and brave?" "Of course we can," Rebecca answered, pulling Lily into her lap. "We can tell her how much we love her for taking care of all of us, even now." Catherine watched them, her heart finally at peace with the new shape their family had taken. "Emily would love this," she said softly. "All of us here together, helping Lily understand love in all its forms." Marcus reached out, taking both Rebecca's and Catherine's hands, forming a circle around Lily. In that moment, surrounded by Emily's flowers and wrapped in the love she had orchestrated even beyond her time with them, they were exactly what she had hoped they would become. A family bound not by convention, but by choice, by understanding, and by the kind of love that transcends all boundaries. The autumn wind rustled through the garden, carrying with it the scent of roses and the echo of Emily's laughter, as if she were telling them all that everything was exactly as it should be. The weeks following Emily's revelations brought both healing and challenges. Rebecca had officially started her child psychology courses online, transforming the small home office into a study space filled with textbooks and colorful child development charts. Her grandfather Joe became a regular fixture in their lives, spending weekends telling Lily stories about Rebecca's childhood and teaching her to play chess on the old wooden board he'd brought from his apartment. One crisp Saturday morning, as Rebecca helped Lily prepare for her first dance recital, Catherine arrived with a special package. "I found this in my closet," she said, carefully unwrapping a delicate tissue paper bundle. Emily wore it for her first ballet recital when she was Lily's age. The tiny ballet costume, pale pink with silver sequins, looked as if it had been preserved in time. Lily's eyes widened with wonder as Catherine held it up. "It was Mommy's," she whispered, reaching out to touch the sparkly fabric. "Yes, sweetheart," Catherine smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "And now it's yours." Rebecca helped Lily try on the costume, her gentle hands adjusting the straps just as Emily must have done with her own mother years ago. The moment wasn't lost on Catherine, who watched with a mix of emotions playing across her face. "You know," Catherine said softly to Rebecca while Lily twirled in front of the mirror, "Emily used to say you had healing hands. I never understood what she meant until now. Watching you with Lily, seeing how you help her connect with her mother's memory while building something new." Rebecca's hands stilled on Lily's shoulders. "She was always better at seeing the truth in people than I was," she replied. "Even now she's teaching us how to love better, how to heal together." Later that afternoon, as they all sat in the audience watching Lily perform, Marcus found himself overwhelmed by the sight of his daughter dancing in her mother's costume, surrounded by the family Emily had carefully crafted for them. Rebecca sat on one side of him, her hand clasped in his, while Catherine and Joe flanked them, both beaming with grandparental pride. After the recital, they gathered at the house for a celebration. The kitchen buzzed with activity as Rebecca and Catherine worked, together preparing Emily's famous chocolate chip cookies, a recipe that had once been a source of tension, but now served as a bridge between them. Emily would add extra vanilla, Catherine remembered, passing the bottle to Rebecca. "And a pinch of sea salt on top," Rebecca added, smiling. She always said it made the sweetness mean more. In the living room, Lily showed her grandfather the new dance moves she'd learned, while Marcus sorted through photos from the recital. One particular shot caught his eye. Lily mid-twirl, the stage lights creating a halo effect around her, making her look remarkably like Emily in an old photo from her own childhood performance. "Look at this," he called out, and soon they all gathered around, passing the photos back and forth, sharing memories and creating new ones. "We should make a special album," Lily suggested, "with pictures of Mommy dancing and me dancing so we can see how we're the same." "That's a wonderful idea," Catherine said, pulling her granddaughter close. "And we can add pictures of all of us together now, showing how our family has grown." Rebecca disappeared into the study and returned with a beautiful leather-bound album she'd been saving for a special occasion. Emily once told me that memories are like gardens. They need tending and care to grow properly, she said, setting the album on the coffee table. As they began arranging photos, old and new, Marcus noticed something remarkable. The pictures from recent months showed a lightness in all of them that had been missing before. Even in photographs where they were simply having dinner together or working in the garden, there was a sense of peace that hadn't existed in the early days after Emily's passing. "She would love this," Catherine said softly, watching Lily carefully. "Place a photo of herself and Rebecca, baking cookies next to one of Emily doing the same with her at that age. All of us together, making new memories while honoring the old ones." Joe, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "You know, in all my years I've learned that families are like quilts. The best ones are made from different pieces, all stitched. Together with love and care, Emily understood that better than most." Rebecca leaned against Marcus's shoulder, watching as Lily continued to arrange photos with careful consideration. "She did, didn't she? She knew we'd need each other, that we'd be stronger together than apart." The afternoon light filtered through the windows, casting a warm glow over their impromptu family gathering. On the mantel, Emily's favorite photograph, the one from the carnival with the three of them young and laughing, seemed to shine with new meaning. "Daddy," Lily called out, holding up a recent photo of all of them in the garden, "can we put this one next to the picture of you and Mommy and Rebecca when you were young, to show how love grows up?" Marcus felt his heart swell with emotion at his daughter's words. "Of course we can, sweetheart. That's exactly what your mother would want us to do." As they continued working on the album together, sharing stories and laughter, the house felt full of life and love in a way that would have made Emily proud. Outside, the first stars of evening began to appear, twinkling like approval from above, as if Emily herself was blessing this new chapter in their shared story. The change in seasons brought new developments for their expanding family. Rebecca completed her first semester of online courses with distinction, and her professors encouraged her to consider pursuing a full doctorate in child psychology. Her work with Lily had evolved into case studies that impressed her mentors, showing how love and understanding could help children process complex emotions. One evening, as autumn turned to winter, Marcus found Rebecca sitting in Emily's old reading nook, surrounded by textbooks and nursing a cup of tea that had long gone cold. "You've been quiet today," he observed, settling into the window seat beside her. Rebecca marked her place in her book and looked up at him. "I received an interesting email this morning. The children's center where I used to volunteer, they're offering me a part-time position working with grieving kids." Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. "That's wonderful news, isn't it?" "It is, but..." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "It would mean changes, real changes, not just being Lily's babysitter anymore, but building a career again, becoming someone new while holding on to who I've been for all of you." Marcus reached out and took her hand. "Rebecca, you've never been just Lily's babysitter. You're family. Emily knew that's what you'd become, what you were always meant to be." "I found another letter this morning," she said softly, pulling a folded paper from her book. "It was tucked into one of my old psychology textbooks. I must have missed it when we went through the box." Together they read Emily's words. "My dearest Rebecca, if you're reading this, you found your way back to your dreams. I always knew you would. Your heart for healing others was too big to stay hidden forever. Don't be afraid of becoming who you were meant to be. Don't think that building your own life somehow diminishes what you've built with Marcus and Lily. Love isn't a finite resource. You taught me that, remember? I chose you for them because I knew you would. Love them completely, but also because I knew they would help you find yourself again. You deserve both, a family to love and a purpose to fulfill. All my love, Emily." Marcus wrapped an arm around Rebecca's shoulders as she wiped away tears. "She's right, you know. You deserve everything, the career, the family, the chance to be fully yourself. But what about Lily? What about our routines? We'll adjust, we'll find new rhythms. Catherine's already mentioned wanting to spend more afternoons with Lily, and your grandfather would love more time with her too." He smiled softly. "We're a family. families adapt. The next morning, they gathered everyone for breakfast to share the news. Lily, who had been working on a special art project, presented Rebecca with a colorful drawing just as she finished explaining about the job offer. "Look," Lily pointed to the picture proudly. "It's all of us helping other kids be happy, like you're going to do at your new job." The drawing showed stick figures of their entire family, Marcus, Rebecca, Catherine, and Grandpa Joe, standing in what appeared to be a rainbow-colored building filled with smiling children. Above them all, a particularly bright star sparkled. "That's Mommy," Lily explained, pointing to the star. "She's helping too from up there." Catherine, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "I think this calls for a celebration. Why don't we all have dinner at the beach restaurant, where everything began?" The suggestion held special meaning for all of them. The beachside restaurant where Marcus and Lily had first spotted Rebecca had become a symbol of their journey together. That evening, as they sat at their usual table overlooking the ocean, Marcus couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. Rebecca was engaged in an animated discussion with her grandfather about incorporating art therapy into her work with children. Catherine and Lily were planning the next week's grandmother-granddaughter baking session. The restaurant staff, who had witnessed their story from the beginning, served them with knowing smiles. "You know what this reminds me of?" Rebecca said suddenly, looking around the table. "That entry in Emily's journal about love multiplying rather than dividing. Look at us now, all the different kinds of love we've discovered, all the ways we've grown together." Lily, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. "Can we make a special wish for Rebecca's new job, like we do with our star messages?" They all joined hands around the table as Lily closed her eyes tight and made her wish. "I wished for all the sad kids to find happy families like ours," she announced, opening her eyes. "Is that a good wish?" "The very best kind," Marcus assured her, catching Rebecca's eye across the table. In that moment, he could almost hear Emily's voice in the sound of the waves, feel her presence in the warmth of their joined hands. As the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in colors that reminded them all of Emily's favorite sunsets, their unconventional family sat together, celebrating not just Rebecca's new beginning, but all the ways love had transformed them. Above them, the first evening star appeared, twinkling like a familiar smile, blessing their continued journey together. Spring arrived with a burst of new beginnings. Rebecca's work at the Children's Center had blossomed into something beautiful. Her natural ability to connect with grieving children, drawing attention from colleagues and families alike. The techniques she'd developed with Lily, the star messages, memory books, and art therapy became tools she used to help other children process their losses. One particularly significant morning, Rebecca found herself preparing for a special presentation. The center had asked her to speak about her innovative approaches to helping children cope with grief. As she got ready, she discovered a small package on her dresser, wrapped in familiar floral paper, Emily's favorite pattern. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a star pendant, along with a note in Marcus's handwriting. "Emily would be proud of how you're helping others shine again. Love, Marcus, Lily, and all of us." The presentation room was packed with professionals and parents alike, but Rebecca's eyes immediately found her family in the front row. Marcus sat with Lily on his lap, while Catherine and Grandpa Joe flanked them, all wearing matching star pins that Lily had insisted on making for the occasion. "Thank you all for coming," Rebecca began, her hand unconsciously touching the star at her throat. "I want to talk to you today about how love transforms grief and how the stories we tell shape the way children heal." As she shared their journey, carefully preserving privacy while conveying the essential truths, Rebecca could see heads nodding in understanding. She talked about the importance of allowing children to maintain connections with those they'd lost while building new bonds, about how families could expand in unexpected ways to create networks of support and love. "One of the most powerful things I've learned," she said, her voice soft but carrying clearly through the room, "is that children have an amazing capacity to understand love in all its forms. They don't see the boundaries and categories we adults create. They simply see love in all its beautiful variations." After the presentation, as families gathered to talk with her, a small girl approached Rebecca's desk. She couldn't have been more than 5, clutching a worn teddy bear and looking up with solemn eyes. "My daddy's sad all the time," the little girl whispered. "Can you help him smile again, like in your story?" Rebecca knelt down to the child's level, aware of Marcus and Lily watching from nearby. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Sarah," the girl replied, hugging her bear tighter. "Well, Sarah, would you like to learn how to make star messages? Sometimes they help us feel closer to the people we miss." As Rebecca began showing Sarah how to create her first star message, Lily approached them, holding out her craft supplies. "You can use my special glitter," she offered. "It makes the stars extra bright." Marcus watched as the two girls worked together, Lily naturally falling into the role of helper and friend. Catherine appeared at his side, wiping tears from her eyes. "Emily would love this," she said softly. "Her two great loves helping other families heal." Later that evening, they gathered in the garden for a special celebration. The space had been transformed with fairy lights, a throwback to Rebecca and Emily's college days, and the roses Emily had planted were in full bloom. Lily had insisted on making star-shaped cookies, working alongside Catherine in the kitchen all afternoon to get them just right. "I have something to share," Marcus said, as they sat together under the twinkling lights. He pulled out an envelope, not one of Emily's this time, but one of his own creation. "I've been thinking about what Emily taught us about family and love, about how sometimes the most beautiful things grow from unexpected places." He opened the envelope and began to read. "Dear Emily, today I watched the family you crafted for us touch other lives, spread the kind of healing love you always believed in. Our daughter is growing into someone who understands that love knows no boundaries. Rebecca is helping other children find their way through darkness to light. Your mother has discovered new depths of understanding and acceptance. You once wrote, 'That love multiplies rather than divides.' You were right, as you so often were. What began as a story of loss has become a testament to the power of love to transform, heal, and create new beginnings. I see you in every star message Lily creates, in every life Rebecca touches with her work, in every moment our unconventional family shares. You're still teaching us, still guiding us, still helping us grow. Thank you for the gift you gave us, the chance to build something beautiful from our broken pieces. We carry your love forward, sharing it with others who need to believe in healing and hope. Forever grateful, Marcus." As he finished reading, Lily released a handful of paper stars into the evening breeze, a new tradition she'd created for special occasions. They watched as the stars danced in the air before settling among Emily's roses. "Look," Lily pointed excitedly to the sky. "A shooting star. Mommy's saying she loves Daddy's letter." Rebecca wrapped an arm around Lily's shoulders, pulling her close. "Your mommy always did have perfect timing." The evening wrapped around them like a warm embrace as they sat together in the garden Emily had loved so much. The fairy lights twinkled like earthbound stars, and the scent of roses mixed with the sweetness of Lily's cookies. In that moment, they were exactly what Emily had hoped they would become, a family bound by choice, understanding, and the kind of love that transcends all boundaries. As summer approached, bringing with it warm breezes and longer days, the house on Maple Street had evolved into something Emily might have dreamed of but could never have fully imagined. Rebecca's work at the Children's Center had led to the creation of a special weekend program where families like theirs, shaped by loss and rebuilt with love, could come together to share their journeys. The living room walls now held a growing collection of photographs that told their story. Lily's dance recital in Emily's costume, Rebecca's presentation. At the center, family dinners in the garden and quiet moments of everyday joy. Among them, the carnival photo of Emily, Marcus, and Rebecca still held its place of honor, but now it seemed less like a reminder of what was lost and more like a foundation for what had been built. One particularly beautiful Saturday morning, Lily burst into the kitchen with an announcement that would set another change in motion. "Miss Sarah from my art therapy group invited me to her birthday party," she exclaimed, waving an invitation decorated with stars and hearts. "She says I'm her best friend now, just like Mommy and Rebecca were." Marcus and Rebecca exchanged glances over their coffee cups. Sarah was the little girl from Rebecca's presentation, and over the past months, the two girls had formed a special bond during the weekend program sessions. "Her daddy's really nice too," Lily continued, climbing onto Rebecca's lap. "He makes origami stars even better than we do, and he says Mommy must be the brightest star in the sky, because she made sure we all found each other." Rebecca felt her heart skip a beat as she remembered Sarah's father, David, a quiet, thoughtful man who had started bringing homemade, star-shaped treats to the weekend sessions. She'd noticed how he listened intently during group discussions, how his eyes held the same mix of grief and hope she often saw in Marcus's. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Marcus said, helping Lily pour milk over her cereal. "We'll make sure to find a special gift for your friend." Later that afternoon, as they worked in the garden together, Marcus noticed Rebecca's distant expression. "Penny, for your thoughts?" She smiled, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "I was thinking about what Emily wrote in one of her letters, about how love isn't a finite resource, about how our hearts can expand in ways we never expected." Marcus sat back on his heels, studying her face. "David's a good man," he said softly. "Emily would approve." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "How do you always know exactly what I'm thinking?" "Because I know you," he replied simply, "and because I've watched you help so many families heal while healing yourself. Maybe it's time for you to open your heart to new possibilities too." That evening, as they prepared for their weekly family dinner, Catherine arrived early to help with preparations. She found Rebecca in the kitchen, arranging Emily's favorite flowers in a vase. "You seem different today," Catherine observed, beginning to chop vegetables for the salad. "Lighter somehow." Rebecca paused, turning to face the woman who had become like a second mother to her. "I met someone," she said quietly. "Another parent from the center. He understands this journey we're on, but I'm scared to explore those feelings." Catherine set down her knife and took Rebecca's hands in hers. "Emily didn't bring you back to us just to help us heal. She wanted you to heal too, to find all the happiness you deserve. But what about Marcus? What about Lily? What about us?" Marcus's voice came from the doorway, where he stood with Lily perched on his shoulders. "We want you to be happy, Rebecca. All of us do." Lily scrambled down from her father's shoulders and ran to hug Rebecca's legs. "Is this about Sarah's daddy? He makes you smile like Mommy does in the pictures?" Rebecca knelt down to Lily's level, her heart full of love for this perceptive child who had helped heal them all. "Would it be okay with you if I sometimes spent time with Sarah and her daddy? Only if we can still make star messages together," Lily said solemnly, "and if he learns to make them too." That night, after everyone had gone home and Lily was asleep, Marcus found Rebecca in the garden, looking up at the stars. Without a word, he handed her an envelope, one last letter from Emily that he'd been saving for the right moment. "My beloved Rebecca, when you read this, I hope you've found your place in the family I dreamed of for all of us. I hope you've helped Marcus learn to laugh again, helped Lily grow strong and confident, helped my mother understand that love comes in many forms. But most of all, I hope you've learned that you deserve every happiness this world has to offer. Your heart has always been big enough to hold many loves. That's one of the things I treasured most about you. Don't be afraid to let new love in. It doesn't diminish what we shared or what you've built with Marcus and Lily. It just adds another light to our constellation of love. Be happy, my dearest friend, be loved, be everything I always knew you could be, forever in your heart, Emily." As Rebecca finished reading, a warm breeze rustled through Emily's roses, carrying the sweet scent of summer and new beginnings. Above them, the stars twinkled like Emily's knowing smile, blessing this next chapter in their ever-expanding story of love. As summer approached, bringing with it warm breezes and longer days, the house on Maple Street had evolved into something Emily might have dreamed of but could never have fully imagined. Rebecca's work at the Children's Center had led to the creation of a special weekend program where families like theirs, shaped by loss and rebuilt with love, could come together to share their journeys. The living room walls now held a growing collection of photographs that told their story. Lily's dance recital in Emily's costume, Rebecca's presentation at the center, family dinners in the garden, and quiet moments of everyday joy. Among them, the carnival photo of Emily, Marcus, and Rebecca still held its place of honor. But now it seemed less like a reminder of what was lost and more like a foundation for what had been built. One particularly beautiful Saturday morning, Lily burst into the kitchen with an announcement that would set another change in motion. "Miss Sarah from my art therapy group invited me to her birthday party," she exclaimed, waving an invitation decorated with stars and hearts. "She says I'm her best friend now, just like Mommy and Rebecca were." Marcus and Rebecca exchanged glances over their coffee cups. Sarah was the little girl from Rebecca's presentation, and over the past months, the two girls had formed a special bond during the weekend program sessions. "Her daddy's really nice too," Lily continued, climbing onto Rebecca's lap. "He makes origami stars even better than we do, and he says Mommy must be the brightest star in the sky because she made sure we all found each other." Rebecca felt her heart skip a beat as she remembered Sarah's father, David, a quiet, thoughtful man who had started bringing homemade star-shaped treats to the weekend sessions. She'd noticed how he listened intently during group discussions, how his eyes held the same mix of grief and hope she often saw in Marcus's. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Marcus said, helping Lily pour milk over her cereal. "We'll make sure to find a special gift for your friend." Later that afternoon, as they worked in the garden together, Marcus noticed Rebecca's distant expression. "Penny for your thoughts?" She smiled, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "I was thinking about what Emily wrote in one of her letters, about how love isn't a finite resource, about how our hearts can expand in ways we never expected." Marcus sat back on his heels, studying her face. "David's a good man," he said softly. "Emily would approve." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "How do you always know exactly what I'm thinking?" "Because I know you," he replied simply. "And because I've watched you help so many families heal while healing yourself. Maybe it's time for you to open your heart to new possibilities too." That evening, as they prepared for their weekly family dinner, Catherine arrived early to help with preparations. She found Rebecca in the kitchen, arranging Emily's favorite flowers in a vase. "You seem different today," Catherine observed, beginning to chop vegetables for the salad. "Lighter, somehow." Rebecca paused, turning to face the woman who had become like a second mother to her. "I met someone," she said quietly. "Another parent from the center. He understands this journey we're on, but I'm scared to explore those feelings." Catherine set down her knife and took Rebecca's hands in hers. "Emily didn't bring you back to us just to help us heal. She wanted you to heal too, to find all the happiness you deserve. But what about Marcus? What about Lily? What about us?" Marcus's voice came from the doorway, where he stood with Lily perched on his shoulders. "We want you to be happy, Rebecca. All of us do." Lily scrambled down from her father's shoulders and ran to hug Rebecca's legs. "Is this about Sarah's daddy? He makes you smile like Mommy does in the pictures." Rebecca knelt down to Lily's level, her heart full of love for this perceptive child who had helped heal them all. "Would it be okay with you if I sometimes spent time with Sarah and her daddy?" "Only if we can still make star messages together," Lily said solemnly, "and if he learns to make them too." That night, after everyone had gone home and Lily was asleep, Marcus found Rebecca in the garden looking up at the stars. Without a word, he handed her an envelope, one last letter from Emily that he'd been saving for the right moment. "My beloved Rebecca, when you read this, I hope you've found your place in the family I dreamed of for all of us. I hope you've helped Marcus learn to laugh again, helped Lily grow strong and confident, helped my mother understand that love comes in many forms. But most of all, I hope you've learned that you deserve every happiness this world has to offer. Your heart has always been big enough to hold many loves. That's one of the things I treasured most about you. Don't be afraid to let new love in. It doesn't diminish what we shared or what you've built with Marcus and Lily. It just adds another light to our constellation of love. Be happy, my dearest friend. Be loved. Be everything I always knew you could be, forever in your heart." Manikain, as Rebecca finished reading. A warm breeze rustled through Emily's roses, carrying the sweet scent of summer and new beginnings. Above them, the stars twinkled like Emily's knowing smile, blessing this next chapter in their ever-expanding story of love. The years had softened the edges of grief, transforming it into something precious and profound. On the morning of what would have been Emily's birthday, the extended family gathered once again in the garden that had become their heart's sanctuary. The star message station that Grandpa Joe had built now stood as a testament to their journey, its walls covered with messages of hope and healing from countless families who had found solace in their story. Rebecca and David had married in a simple ceremony the previous spring, with Lily and Sarah serving as flower girls, scattering star-shaped petals along the path. The celebration had been held in this very garden, where Emily's presence could be felt in every bloom and gentle breeze. Now they lived in a house just down the street, close enough for daily visits and impromptu family dinners. Marcus watched, as Lily, now 7, helped younger children from the support group create special birthday star messages for their own angels. She had grown into a compassionate young girl who carried her mother's spirit in every gesture, every kindness. "She's so much like Emily," Catherine said softly, joining Marcus on the garden bench. "Not just in looks, but in the way she loves, completely and without reservation." The morning's gathering was special, the official opening of the Emily Thompson Memorial Garden at the Children's Center. Rebecca's work had inspired the creation of this healing space, where families could find the same comfort and connection that had helped their own family flourish. As families began to arrive, Marcus noticed how naturally everyone fell into the rhythm they had created. Catherine and Grandpa Joe welcomed newcomers with warm smiles and gentle understanding. David helped set up the refreshment table, making sure every treat was arranged just as Emily would have liked. Sarah and Lily moved among the younger children, teaching them about star messages and sharing their own stories of healing. Rebecca stood at the center of it all, her professional confidence now perfectly balanced with the personal warmth that made her so effective in helping others heal. She caught Marcus's eye across the garden and smiled, a smile full of understanding for the bittersweet beauty of this moment. "Everyone," Rebecca called out, gathering the group around the garden's central fountain. "We're here today, not just to remember, but to celebrate the incredible power of love to transform our deepest sorrows into sources of healing and hope." She gestured to the new memorial plaque, which bore Emily's favorite quote, "Love multiplies when we share it." Below the quote was a simple message, "In loving memory of Emily Thompson, who taught us that family is built by choice, strengthened by love, and guided by stars." Lily stepped forward then, holding a special star message she had created. "My mommy knew that sometimes the best families are the ones we build together," she said, her voice clear and confident. "She helped us find each other, and now we help other families find their way too." Sarah joined her sister friend, adding her own thoughts. "And sometimes, when we're really lucky, we get extra parents and grandparents and family members who make our hearts bigger." Marcus felt tears well up as he watched their daughters, for that's what they had truly become, share their wisdom with the gathered families. Emily's influence had created not just healing for their own family, but a ripple effect that continued to touch lives in ways they were only beginning to understand. Catherine stood to share her own perspective, her voice strong with conviction. "Emily taught me that love doesn't fit in boxes or follow rules. It grows where it's planted and blooms in its own time. This garden is a testament to that truth, a place where all forms of love and family are celebrated and honored." As the afternoon progressed, families shared stories and created star messages together. The garden filled with laughter and tears, with healing and hope. Children who had arrived withdrawn and sad found themselves making friends and sharing their feelings through art and story. At sunset, they gathered for their traditional star-lighting ceremony. Each person held a small solar-powered starlight, creating a constellation of earthbound stars throughout the garden. "These lights," Rebecca explained to the group, "represent the connections that bind us all together. The love that continues even when those we love become stars themselves. Every light adds to our constellation, making it brighter and more beautiful. As darkness fell, the garden transformed into a magical space filled with twinkling lights. Marcus stood with his arm around Lily, Rebecca and David nearby, with Sarah, Catherine and Grandpa Joe completing their circle. Above them, the first evening star appeared, bright and steady as always. "That's my mommy," Lily whispered, though everyone could hear her in the quiet garden. "She's still helping people find their way home." Marcus looked around at their extraordinary family, built from loss, strengthened by love, guided by the wisdom of a woman who had seen beyond conventional boundaries to the heart of what family truly means. Emily's presence lived on in every star message created, every child comforted, every heart beginning to heal. "You know what I think?" Sarah said, taking Lily's hand. "I think your mommy must have the biggest heart in heaven, because she made sure we all had enough love to share with everyone who needs it." As if in response to her words, a gentle breeze swept through the garden, carrying the sweet scent of roses and the promise of continued healing.